Hey everyone, this is Brian at F Studios, my home studio away from home, and I'm just kind of doing this live video here. It's kind of an impromptu thing. I've been away from the studio for a few weeks now. I've been working on mixing a tune here as an album that I want to release, and I've gotten to a point to where there's not a lot left to do, but some things had required my attention at home that I just need to stay there and focus on that for a while. Today I'm kind of taking a break. And I was just going to come back to the studio here and work on the songs. And I wasn't really planning on doing this video. It's just, like I said, it's just kind of an impromptu thing. So I'm not really set up with anything other than just a cell phone streaming live on the Facebook. It's not a high quality audio stream going with it. It's just what's being picked up through the microphones. And all I'm going to do is I'm just working on a song to mix. This is the last song on the second disc of the Madman album. And I've done the preliminary mixes. I like how they sounded at that point, but now I'm checking them out through my HS8 Yamaha monitors. And I think there's some adjustments I want to make. There's not really anything that's going to be done here that's like educational or tutorial or anything like that. I'm not even sure how long I'm going to work on this or how far I'm going to get today. And, I just figured, whatever. If there's people out there who might be interested in just watching, they can watch. If not, no big deal. Anyway, this song is called Execution of Justice. Like I said, it's the last song on the second disc. And right now I'm just going to try to see if I liked how the preliminary mix with the drums and the main rhythm, guitar, and bass tracks work out just through the monitor system here. So I'll start it up, take a listen. So listening to it, I'm liking the way the guitars sound. I'm liking the way the bass sounds. Let's just turn those on and see what we got. Okay, so I like how the snare sounds with this so far. I like how the kick sounds. But I do need to do something about the toms. When I had them EQ'd and set up, I just didn't like how they were coming through with this setup here. Let's go ahead and start it back near the beginning. let's solo out just the toms. Too much bleed coming through from the rest of the instruments, especially the cymbals. If I want to turn those toms up so they resonate more within the rest of the actual mix for the sub-mix section here I'm working on, I got to do something about those cymbals, because that's going to just be really annoying, really distracting. So there's a few choices I might try with EQ. Maybe I'll just cut them out altogether. We'll see. Let's see what happens. Start with is I'm going to see just what happens if I gate them. So we're going to use this section here. Yeah, we're going to use that. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the compression I have on it, and I'm going to turn off. Actually, there's a lot of compression on it. I just might be able to get rid of that compression. Reduce the compression. Let's see how much cymbal bleed there still is. Let's add that in with the overheads, see what happens. Yeah, it's not too bad. Yeah, maybe that's all it was. Maybe it was just too much compression. A little bit less compression turns around, lets the drums themselves resonate and stand out a little more. Might be it. Back it up a bit here. Okay, I gotta listen to that just by itself. Alright, so I'm obviously losing the second rack tom a little bit. It gets quiet. And The only thing I can think of is maybe at the time when it was being recorded and the gate was on it. The drum wasn't being hit hard enough for the gate to open up and stay open, and so it was closing during that time period. Because these were gated on the way in, not compressed, not anything else. Generally, a good rule of thumb is to just record everything open, raw, if you're by yourself and you don't have the ability to have somebody in another room listening to it, or you can't listen to it very well through your own monitoring system while you're setting everything up. And then when you record it raw, then you can go through and apply the dynamics and whatnot. But I didn't do it that time. I did it, I thought I could get away with actually setting it up to have a gate done on the way in for recording, and then set the other dynamics, the compression and stuff afterwards. But I don't know, let's see. Hitting it with that much compression actually, even that all out of breath. But now I'm worried about whether or not the cymbals coming through are going to cause a problem. Let's turn everything else back on. So I don't know, maybe just for safety's sake, for the mix, whatnot, maybe I should see if there's something I can do more to get rid of all that extra bleed on there. Let's see. Might want to change the EQ curve to start with. I'm going to flatten that out. Doesn't even sound like that gate that was on there really even did anything. So, crapola. Now, it doesn't sound like it gated out at all. Possibly I had the settings set wrong. So, okay, I'm going to see what happens if I run it through another gate. Bounce it down onto that. Give me a moment to get things set up. We're going to turn the EQ off. This is going to go back up to 0. And then we're going to turn this into a gate. Here we go. Recall gate. it's going to work out. It might work pretty well. The threshold's pretty light. In fact, the gate actually closes before we even finish the tom roll. It's just the decay settings on the gate allow that tom roll to continue to go through before the gate's actually completely shut down. I'm going to just go back to the beginning. We're going to see how it just kind of plays out in the mix. Okay, so the gate settings are going to work. It allows the toms to still come through. Nothing's being cut out by the gates. So now I need to do the bounce. Now you're probably, if you guys are new to recording or have been doing it for a while, you know about DAWs, DAWs. Everybody who knows anything about recording should know about DAWs. You might be wondering why I'm not using a DAW. Well, I do have one. I run Reaper, and it's been pretty good so far, but I still prefer using things that are more hands-on. I mean, this guy actually has an actual mixing board, automated faders, controls that you can actually handle for EQs and all that kinds of stuff. I just prefer that rather than doing point and click with a mouse or, you know, using the touchpad on the laptop. But Reaper really did help with this project, and I'll get into that a little bit. Let me set this thing up to do the bounce so I have this all taken care of. Bring the volumes down to Unity at 0. And I'm going to use some unused tracks, which I think, let's go back to the virtual track. I can bounce those toms into 9 and 10. Right here, 9 and 10. So that will still use the same buses, 1 and 2. And I'll just turn the stereo bus off. We don't need to hear that. Turn this off altogether. And let's see, my in and my out points. In, out. Okay, we'll just set this up. And we'll just let it do its thing. We won't have to bother listening to it. Anyway, the deal is, this project was originally started back in 2000 and I finished it in 2007. The original project was my second attempt at recording an album when I first started getting into multi-track recording. And at that time, I still just had a 4-track cassette. It's a Tascam 424, I think Mark III, if I remember right. I got it back in the other room there. In fact, I've been thinking about pulling it out and using it for some more stuff. Anyway, the first 3 years I was using that for this project. I was just recording the basics. I was recording drums onto just a single track, 2 tracks for rhythm guitars or a rhythm and a keyboard, and a track for bass. And I was just putting all the fundamentals together. And then in 2003, I bought this unit and I bounced everything down to this. And then I recorded all the other tracks that go along with those songs, all on this. So about 2007, like I said, I finished this up, and the person I knew was starting up their own publishing company, just brand new to start. They needed people to be able to push to other outfits, other distributors, vendors, whatnot, you'd call them. And so I sent them off my stuff, which was, you know, okay. I can go out and listen to it in the car and it would actually sound pretty good. But, you know, it still sounded like it was not as polished as what you'd like it to be. And several years goes by, and all of a sudden I'm starting to make money coming from my PROs off a few of the songs from this album. So I thought, okay, you know what? I want to redo the thing, make it sound even better. Know how, now that I've gotten better with mixing, things like that. And I was happy with everything about the original 4 tracks except the drums. The drums were kind of hit and miss with their sound because at the time I had very limited amount of equipment to use, and I couldn't monitor how the drums were sounding on the way in. It was all just had to be a guessing game. I had headphones, but they were just open back headphones, similar to these COS headphones. And no matter how loud I turned the volume up in the headphones, the actual drums were just that much louder. You know, I could hear them outside the headphones, and they were just blowing out everything else. I couldn't hear any of the music. I couldn't hear how the drums were gonna sound, how they were balanced and whatnot. So the mics and everything were just kind of placed as a guessing game. You know, when I started out the album, I only had 3 mics. So there was a mic on the upper snare head, closed mic. There was a mic in the kick, closed mic. And then there'd be a mic set up above the kick, kind of placed more towards the floor toms instead of being dead center. Well, on a few tracks, it came out sounding absolutely great. On a number of other tracks, the snare came out sounding really thin and funky. And it's because of the phasing issues with how the mics all combine together. And I couldn't EQ anything because I couldn't hear anything. So everything got recorded flat on the one track and then just got a standard EQ. And then, of course, that Tascam unit had a very basic EQ system like the old mixing boards back in the 60s, 70s, and even earlier. It's got a 3-band EQ, low and high shelving with a sweepable mid. Okay, it works pretty well, but still, if you want to get the best sound out of that unit, you gotta treat it like you did the old school recordings, where you got the sound on the way in before you messed with anything afterwards. You know what I mean? So anyway, I figured, I'm gonna try to redo the album. Not everything, but just the drums. I'm gonna re-record the drums with the setup that I have, close mic everything with 2 stereo overheads, and just get it sounding nice. Put it all on this system. So that meant getting the old 4 tracks back out and transferred them all over to digital. And I did that, worked great. But then when I went to go sync them up with how the original masters came out, they were not able to sync up. You'd start off, everything sounded great right off the get-go, but just within a matter of minutes or so, you'd start hearing they're just a little bit off, a little bit off, a little bit off, more and more. And by the time you get to the end of the song, they're off quite a bit. It's like, what the hell's going on? Well, this actual answer is that the Tascam recorder was playing the tapes back just slightly faster than what it had originally played back when I bounced down those subs onto this machine back in 2003. So that's where Reaper came in. Reaper came in and I was able to use its time stretch compression algorithms, its editing features to basically stretch out the original 4 tracks to match up with the masters without changing the pitch of the audio. And because modern DAWs are 20 plus years ahead of what this guy is, the algorithms used in certain features like that are just better. I mean, this guy here has got time compression editing features as well, but if you do too much, you notice artifacts in the audio. It just sounds like there's some weird phasing issue that can make it sound fuller or narrower, or certain things like if you use them on drums, you can hear this pulsing because it's trying to stretch out the transient, and so it's kind of, I'm probably chopped up a little bit, and so you kind of hear when the transients hit to stretch it out. And the new stuff, the DAWs just don't have that. So when doing bigger things like that, it's just better that I used the DAW, and it got done a lot faster. And then I transferred all those tracks back into here, lined them back up with the original tracks that were in this machine, and it worked. Worked out great. So then I went to the process of recording the drums and getting that all done. I went through all the songs before I started mixing anything, and then I did some preliminary mixing, and then of course here we are now at this point. Okay, so this guy's done bouncing those tom tracks, so I'm going to set those up back on the tom channels 5 and 6. So we're just going to go into our edit feature, and we're just going to swap some tracks around. Actually, I got to open up a virtual track because I don't want to get rid of the original tom tracks. So we're just going to open these up on a different virtual track that's blank. Go back to the edit menu. And now we'll do the swap. Exchange this one to that one. What does it say? Oh, okay, so we'll do that backwards. 9 and 8, 2, 5, 6, 7. Hey, that worked. Come back, turn this off, turn that on. All right, so let's look at these tom tracks again. Wasn't paying enough attention, I screwed something up there. Okay, damn it. All right, so I gotta do them again. We're gonna back that out. And you might be wondering why. Well, because I didn't turn the buses off on the rest of the material. See, everything's being bussed through channels 1 and 2 to mix down, do a submix on the tracks 1 and 2. Buses 1 and 2 in this system also feed tracks 9 and 10. So I didn't even think about it when doing this. I was just being a dumbass. So I got to turn them off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. Turn it off. And then we'll come back here. We'll leave those on. Turn that off. All right, that should do it. Start it back up. See what happens. And do this all over again. So anyway, wind's kicking up outside, and I have. What the hell? Come on. Wind's kicking up outside, and I've got some long, pretty tall rose bush stems out there, and they're tapping on my window outside. It's like one of those old horror movies, except it's like in the middle of the fucking day. Oh well. Anyway, so Reaper helped out really well with that. And I get everything over here. I got my drums set up. I do my recordings. I'm getting things mixed. And at this point, I still didn't have these monitors. You know, I'm using these Koss UR40 headphones. And these guys have been pretty good. I mean, I mixed my first album with these that we did, full-length album. I mixed, oh gosh, what did I do? Moogie Man was kind of a punk psychedelic rock synth, kind of a synth rock guy. I did his album mixed with those. It came out sounding really great. I mixed a number of my own singles that come out sounding pretty good on those guys. And let's see. Sacrament of Impurity, their last album, Purest of Sins, I did with them, mixed with those. Plus, I also did some work with that on the outside, on the big system out in the other room. Their demo album under a new band name, Weary, I mixed with these guys here and then mastered it on the big system out there when they came over and took a listen to everything. Dio Galtis, Ossuary Wraith, something like that. Did all that. Ossuary Wraith, that album actually came out sounding pretty damn good, and it was just recorded live in this room. You know, the drums were set up over here, just like I have my kit. Their drummer there. Bass player was next to the piano here, a guitar player there, guitar player here. The vocalist was next to the other piano there. And I had the guitar amp set up, one just outside in the kitchen area with the divider closed. And I had another amp set up in the living room facing towards the wall. And then the bass amp in the living room pushed into a corner facing out this way. Everything's close mic. Everything's being piped in through in-ear buds for monitoring systems for the guys with their individual mixes so they can hear themselves a little louder if they need to, pull them back if they need to be pulled back. And I was in shock with how good it sounded coming out live, just done like this in this room. But the thing was, you know, the guys weren't used to recording to click tracks or whatever, and they just wanted to groove off of each other. And that's how Sacrament was as well. So it all came out sounding really good and all blended together very well. And I was kind of surprised that once I got that album mixed, you know how everybody these days is all concerned about the LUFS loudness levels, you know, and they want them to be in certain targets, and then some people are like, well, let's get even louder, you know, that they're still running the loudness war from the 90s and stuff. That album actually became really loud. I mean, if you were to listen to it on an uncompressed CD format or whatever, it is very loud for the whole album. The whole album clocks in at an average of negative 1.5 LUFS. While when you listen to the majority of commercial music, maybe 9 or 6, you know, negative 9, negative 6 LUFS is the average loudness levels. And that's where I've had some of my other songs done as well. And it's just surprising with how loud it got. I didn't plan on it for it to get that loud, but the balancing on everything just made it possible to get that loud without being overbearing. All it means is you don't have to turn your amps up as high to get the same kind of loudness, the same kind of power out of it as you would somebody else's album. Outside of that, it's nothing special, you know. Loudness is loudness. If you got good enough amplifiers and speakers that you can really turn up a quiet song to play back loudly, and it's still going to sound just as good as if you have loud recorded songs that you turn their volume down. It really just depends on the amps. And today's day of age, you know, it's not like it was back in the 70s with all the equipment that I was growing up with at the house where, you know, you have a Harman Kardon stereo amplifier for your home stereo system. Apparently they're only rated at a 45 watts RMS, but they're using 100-watt finals in each side or better that actually could round out to 100-watt RMSs when you do the math. And you crank it up and it just shakes the floor. What do you get for 45 watts nowadays? I mean, nothing. You know, it's just a whole different ballgame. Okay, so this is recorded again. It's bounced down. Let's try this again and see if I didn't fuck up this time on it. All right. Go back into the main menu. Virtual tracks. Gonna set these back up. And we're gonna do the transfer again. The exchange. 5, 6. All right, see what this does. Okay, that's perfectly quiet there. Yeah, there was a little bit of a blurt, but that's not going to matter. Okay, that should come out pretty good. I think that'll come out really nice. But what I need to do is Okay, that's a bit weird. That should not be happening. That gate should have transferred to the way things sound off of tracks 9 and 10. Says we got no recording there, yeah. So this is now going to require a little bit more investigation, I guess, because technically that should have worked. Maybe this low battery system I have going on with this guy right now is causing that trouble. Let's find out. I'm going to go back to the regular tracks. And we're going to arm 9 and 10. I'm going to turn up 9 and 10 now. I want to hear what these things are sounding like. Aha! You know what that is? That's my audio effects too. They're all set up to be going through the other channels. So, how come? Because I have them set up for pre and post. That'll do it. So, with those off, let's see what... There should not be anything going through that on channels 9 and 10. So I need to see, what have we got going on here? Turn these off. Something causing those to go in. Why? I don't know. Let's look at my settings. easiest thing to do in this situation is you go back to your scene 0 on this machine, and that sets it all back up like normal, like the original. So we're going to hit a recall on that, and we're going to check these out again. Turn off the stereo buses, come back into 9 and 10. Now we're going to turn 5 and 6 back up to 0. Pull up 9 and 10 to 0. That should not be happening. And why is it happening? Very interesting. Especially since I've set this thing back up to where it's just should be default setting. So I shouldn't be getting any of that. I wonder which side of the effect that's coming out of. Is that the reverb on effect 1, or is that the reverb? That's a hall. That's a long. Man. That's very strange, because the reverbs shouldn't even be set up like that now. I'm gonna see if this does the same thing through other stuff. All right. Yeah, interesting. Start that back up. should not be getting that at all. There's nothing recorded on that. And I'm trying to... Yeah, that's really weird. Let's just do a scene recall right then and there. Okay, so at this point, what I'm going to do, there's obviously some kind of glitch here, and it might be because this thing has a dead internal battery, so it might not be setting things up properly in the system. So, what I'm going to do, I'm going to save the song as it is. I'm going to do a shutdown on the machine, then turn it back on, and then we're going to start that track back up and just see what happens. You know, it's weird. My luck has always been the shit goes wrong whenever I'm trying to do something where I can show people how it works. But it's all right. I've known this thing has been having problems with the battery for months now. I need to tear it down, and I need to go have that battery replaced in it. At the same time, that it will allow me to do the repair onto the number 16 fader here. Something sticky in there, and I can either just replace it, or I can see if I can clean it out. I was hoping to get this project done though before any of that happened. So let's see what we have going on. Now I'm just curious, is there going to be a trap? Yes, there is. So if I do that, and then let's see, I'm gonna run this through. What do you know? The sound is gone. Why is it gone? Let's do some changes. And try it again like this. Another thing may have to do with is this drive, I know I cloned it. And when I was working with another member of the group I'm part of for this thing, putting together a new software program that would allow us to make image copies of this drive onto a computer so we can then manipulate things real easy in a dock. Because the way this thing is set up, it was originally set up that everything got stored on the hard drive here, and if you wanted to store it anywhere else, it was internal CDs. But this is slow. It's based on old SCSI systems. Some of the slightly newer stuff are on ATAPI, but they're still slow, like 4x recording. And so we got a new software where we just pop out the drive and we connect it up via a hard drive connector to USB, and it could transfer the entire drives within just minutes, basically, and go back and forth. Makes it much faster, and if these things burn out, the CD drives burn out and you can't find them anymore, it's another viable option to keep this thing usable. So, with that being said, when we were first working on that, I had this album project. I transferred my stuff over there and onto the PC via that program. And some of the tracks, the audio was just broken up. It was really screwed up. And when I took the whole drive image and put it back onto this hard drive, that's when we noticed it. It did the same thing. It didn't make a good copy, because I think what it came down to is I hadn't even defragged this drive, and so the file blocks were all over the place on the drive. And the software at the time in the beta stage wasn't really set up to deal with that, I guess. I'm just assuming. I haven't really talked to the guy who was programming the software to figure it all out, but he eventually did, working on it. But my drive itself may still be somewhat slightly corrupted until I do a complete wipe and reformat, which I don't want to do until this is all done. So right now, since I'm hearing the songs without the reverb coming through on those tom tracks on the bounce, we're going to try it again, just see what happens. This time I'm going to listen to the whole damn thing. We'll just turn the volume down a little bit, see what happens. So anyway, while this is going on, I might as well just go ahead and talk about a little bit more of this. Like I said, these guys here were set up to use CDRW drives for storage. Hey, no reverb coming through. Good. The drums still are hitting the gate just a little bit, even though the threshold is set at -6 dB. If I got to clean it up later, I'll clean it up, but I really don't think they're going to cause any big problem. We'll find out, though. Anywho, these CDRW systems are purposely limited by this machine to be slow, and that was because Yamaha wanted to make sure there was no errors in recording the data and transferring it from the drive through the system onto the CDRW. But these guys are getting really hard to find if they burn out. And just like CD drives and DVD drives and stuff that you get for computers and stuff that are old, or like Xbox DVD drives, the old original ones, they're almost impossible to find. And if you do find them, there's no guarantee they're going to work and last for very long. So an option is to use these new cards, the SCSI to SD card, or Zulu SCSI card like I have, which they just use image files of hard drives, CD-ROMs, magnetic, optical, whatever, to emulate another drive hooked up to the machine. And they just store on SD chips or micro SD chips. And the great thing about it is that, you can have over 400 gigabytes of data stored just on a chip that big, right? Anyway, let's go ahead and put that back in. So that's actually pretty cool. And that's helped me out a lot with this album, because when going through and mixing it, because I had the low battery issue going on, I didn't want to take a chance that something just completely failed right in the middle of doing this project and I'd lose everything I've done. Because I did have that happen not that long ago on a song I was working on. It's called How Many? It's kind of a heavy metal, gothic heavy metal song in the flavor of like Typo Negative. I had all the basic elements done to it. I had it mixed and it was working out pretty good, but there were still things I wanted to improve. I wanted to improve the vocals. I wanted to improve how the drums were mixed with like their dynamics or whatnot. And the damn drive failed on me. Just done. And I lost everything. All I had was that stereo mix down I did, just to try to get a sense of how it was working, you know, how it sounded. And my vocals weren't that great on it at the time. The way the harmonies were done, were mixed and balanced, weren't at the point that I would have liked them to be. And I couldn't do anything about it. I couldn't go back and fix anything. Why? Because I didn't use up 50,000 discs saving every change I made onto the CD-ROM drive. And I had no other backup system. But now with that Zulu SCSI card and that little micro SD chip, every time I make some major changes onto a mix or an edit, I can save it onto that thing, and if anything were to happen to this hard drive in this system, I have everything backed up right there. And it only takes up that little space on that that chip, rather than a whole disc of CDs like it would have if I would have ran it out of here. And then when the album, like this album, is all finished and done, then I can either burn the CDs to save them, or since this album is so large, I just pull the drive out, use the new software that was developed by a member of the forum that I'm part of for this thing, a member of the group, and transfer the whole drive over onto a PC hard drive, and then save it in like a DVD or a Blu-ray disc, or I can save it on another SD card, and it will always be there. I'll always have access to it. So it's just backup, safety backups. Okay, this thing is done doing the bounce again. We're gonna see how this works out now. We're gonna go back to the virtual tracks. I'm gonna put it on tracks 7, 5, and 6 are on virtual track 7. And now we're going to exchange the tracks over. So 9 and 10 to 5 and 6, virtual track 7. Okay. And let's see what it does. What do you know? There you go. That reverb didn't come through on anything. So I don't know if it has anything to do with this low battery issue, but once I saved the file that I was working on, turned the machine off, reloaded it, the glitch is gone. At least that's what it seems like. Let me turn the dynamics off. Maybe I'll be eating my words here. Nope. It's good. It's all good. Okay, so let's get the music set back up. definitely better, definitely cleaned up the noise I was hearing from the cymbals, bleeding through the tom tracks, interfering with the cymbals coming through the overheads. Definitely better. But now I just need to smooth out the toms, like the rolls or whatnot. So let's get it set up in a spot where we can hear that. Volume level there seems to be fine. Let's hear just the, well, let's just take out the cymbals, the overhead track, see what it sounds like. Sounds like I need to turn them up. They sound pretty quiet. Let's see. I can do it this way. Need to mess with the EQ settings now. Let's find a good spot for those tones. Channel is obviously stronger than my right channel, so I may have to de-link those two channels, but keep the compressors linked together for left and right, and just change my overall volume settings on channels 5 and 6. Yeah, there's definitely a need for something going on there. have you wondering what I'm doing, I'm messing with things to see if the compressor itself can help even all that out again. And it looks like it does. I just need to change the attack in here so that it still sounds fairly natural without allowing the attack to overpower the rest of the drums. Like the initial attack right when I hit that upper rack tom, and how it then plays out to the rest of the toms. There's still that one rack tom, the second one that's coming through weak. Yeah, that hits pretty hard compared to the rest of them. I wonder why. That's better. Anybody who knows anything, I just set the attack right at 0, so it didn't allow that transient to come through at all. I pulled up the threshold on the compressor to only negative 26 dB instead of down to negative 40 like I had it, and I gave it more compression, 5 to 1 instead of 2.5 to 1, and I hit the knee maximum 4, so it's got a much gentler roll into the compression stage instead of just being hard compressed. And that gives it a better tone. Well, it gives it a better sound. It's more even, so let's see what we got. Back it up. Still sounds like I need to turn those toms up more too. Before I use anything here, let's just use the volume out, the gain output on the compressor. I'm going to pull it up to 15.5. Much better. Evens everything out. That might be where I need things to be. Let's start this back at the beginning of the song and just see what happens. You know what? I'm actually really happy with that. Right now, I'm going to save the file onto the drive, and then I'm going to save it onto the backup, onto the Zulu SCSI card. Because in case, like I said earlier, if something happens, I want to make sure this is actually backed up, and I can always get it back. So, got that done. We're going to optimize the track. So this track is just over a gig. This guy is 1.05 gigabytes. Anyway, execute the backup, let it do its thing. So you guys might have heard that the drums sound like the timing's a little off. Because when I listen to it just with the guitar, bass, and drums, I can hear that. And there is a reason for it. It's the same way through the entire album. When I first started recording this album, I did not have a click track, nothing to reference, timing, no nothing. So it was recorded strictly off of how I performed the drums to start with. And so there's tempo issues. I'm speeding up, slowing down. I got no music to listen to. I'm just hearing it in my head, kind of playing along and just going along with the feel. On top of that, there's the issues with the tapes. Like I said earlier, their playback is a little bit fast or a little bit slow, and it may not be steady all the way through from beginning to end. It may change just a little bit. I think the book that came with that Tascam 4-track recorder says tolerance is 0.02%, I think was what it said. So there could be that much play going in and out. And then, of course, when I was using Reaper to do the time stretch and compression features within each parts of the songs to get them to line up to where they were, all this stuff adds up to where it may just throw the timing off where things should come in, where things shouldn't. And then, so when I did all that and I start recording the new drum tracks, I'm trying to listen for cues while I'm playing. Where's the cue coming in from when I do this roll? Or should I hit the snare right at this time? And sometimes the way the songs were performed, like with this song here, there's not a lot going on that helps you really keep time because you just got open guitar chords that you're just letting ring. And some parts the bass is going along and pretty steady, going dun 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 dun, or whatever like that. And that helps out. And then there were other issues where, maybe the bass, when it was recorded originally, hit a little bit early or a little late, or the same thing with the guitars. So when I'm listening back to it, just these tracks, it's like, well, it sounds kind of sloppy, Maybe it needs to be fixed up a little bit. And so I have to start making the decisions. Should I edit and bring things into better time alignment, or should I just leave it alone? Because when I'm listening through it with all the vocals, all the other tracks going on, they were all created off the original 4 tracks, which had all the bit of that slop or whatnot. And when you listen to it all together, it's not as bad. You don't really notice as much, if you notice it at all. Some people, the majority of people, I would say, probably wouldn't notice it at all. But I do, and I'm sure other people who are, very experienced musicians are going to hear it too. That's okay, whatever. But I thought about it like, well, should I really fix that, or should I just leave it alone? And if I do fix it, at what stage should I actually do all that work? Should I do it right in the beginning where I'm dealing with the basic raw tracks, or should I do it later on? And I'm thinking now that what might be the easiest thing to do, that's going to work out the best, is just edit the material here so that if the bass is a little bit out, I can change where it hits on the right at the right time. The snare or the kick or whatever on the drums can then be edited to hit at the right time. And then at that point, when that's all together and that's all done and it sounds good with the rest of the tracks that are in there, like the vocals, the guitar harmony pieces, the lead guitar, all that stuff, then if I wanted to, I can do the mix down of that, put it back into Reaper, and then I could essentially quantize it. I mean, I don't like the idea of doing quantize, but it would allow me to smooth out the variation that's there. Not necessarily I'm talking about this thing speeding up and slowing down, but the dragging. You know, when I talk about dragging or not dragging, I'm just talking about smaller sections that are, you know, the snare's coming in too early or too late, or the kick or something like that. You might want to just adjust it a little bit. Because if I do that, then again, you just go into the time stretch compression algorithms, and you can just make a very minor change. It's quick, and it doesn't cause a lot of problems with the artifacting like you could get out of the older machines like this when you try that stuff. And it's pretty forgiving. If you do screw up, you just hit the undo button, and there you go. Yeah, this guy's the same way. It's got a good setup on there where if you do screw it up, you hit undo and you're right back to where you started from. You don't have to worry about having lost all that previous data. But I may do that. It's really going to come down to the mastering stage. How do I feel about listening to it in the mastering stage? And the mastering is going to be done out in the big room, or the living room out there, the entertainment room with the big sound system. It's not what you would think of in like pro studio, mastering studios and whatnot, blah, blah, blah. No, it's actually just a really nice sounding in-home sound system, which is the point. I'm remixing, not necessarily remixing, but I'm fine-tuning the mix on actual studio monitors, which I've checked them out and calibrated to where they are perfectly flat in how they are responding in this room, right where they're set up, far enough away from the walls and whatnot, that I'm not getting any weird phasing issues, no reflections that I need to worry about. So I know at this point, if it sounds good here, it should sound pretty good almost anywhere else. It should sound good in a car, it should sound good in your house, sound good through your headphones. The only differences are going to come down to whether or not you have your system set up crappy. Anyway, the big system out there, though, it's set up to sound good, not just with music, but with movies and all kinds of stuff. So, and it does sound good. So, yeah, when I come to master, I can put it out there, and I can just sit back and take a listen to it. And I'm not using anything really expensive. I got a 1200 watt Onkyo surround system on it. That's the amp. The front speaker, the center speaker, is just a little small one that I picked up with the other speakers, and I think it's a Kenwood, if I remember right. And then the two large tower speakers are JBLs, and I can't remember what model number they are, but they're not expensive. But they come with 15-inch woofers. The cabinet's ported. Then it has 4 different size speakers, like a 3-inch. And a 1-inch. I think are the 2 different types of speakers within that 4 that act as mid-range and tweeters. I'd have to pull it apart and take a look. But they sound really good. Pretty full. Not as good or as full as the Speaker Lab 7s back at home. But nonetheless, they sound good. And then I got, what were they? Pioneers? I can't remember. As the surround speakers, and they're 8-inch speakers like these are, but the way it's constructed, the type of the speaker and the type of wood, the resonance is higher, has higher frequency than what these guys do. I mean, if you tap these speakers here, you got a nice, really little thump, thump, thump. And it's a little tighter on those surrounds in the back. But, you know, for surround, that's fine. You don't get a lot of low signal information coming through surround speakers. So, you know, no big deal. Why bother it? So I'll put this thing out there, and I'll have the big speakers out there to really help represent what the low end, what the bass is going to sound like during the mastering stage. And of course, this machine here will be set up for mastering then, which I'll have the initial 2-track mix playing back, which I'll have access to all the dynamics and 4-band EQ. And then it'll be set up with a 4-band multi-compressor, which will give me dynamics control of each one of those 4 bands. And it'll give me 2-stage EQ on each one of those bands. And that's going to go through another set of channels that'll be set up as a mid-side processor, which I'll then have dynamics controls and 4-band EQ for just the left channel, the right channel, and everything that comes out of the center, which that's going to make it really good, because that point I will be able to make fine-tuning adjustments on the sound that should just be coming out of the center speaker in the surround format and not affecting what's coming out of the side channels. And then if I want to do something that's going to affect the side channels separately, I can do that. Or if I want to make the rear channels come through stronger, I can do that. And then, of course, I'll go through another analog audio sweetening device that I have, an Aphex exciter, back into the machine here, into the mastering bus, which then again I'll have the last bit of dynamics for the hard limiter right at the top, and any kind of other EQ that I want to add to it. So that should work out pretty good, and I'm kind of getting excited about it because I'm getting close to finishing this. It's the amount of time that's going to be necessary to finish it. It's going to really be dependent upon, you know, what's going on at home and how quickly, how easily I can get other people in here to do the voiceover dialogue, recording tracks, and get those all mixed together. Man, I'm not really sure if there's anything more to worry about with this project, because let's see, how many more songs are there? There's this song, this ends the CD, then the last CD only has a few songs. Let's see, it starts out with In This Place, which could incorporate a lot of the same settings that this song has. So that should be easy if I have to do any differences with the drum mixing. I can just transfer settings from this to that song file. And then after In This Place, I think it goes right into Sarah, which is the only kind of like love ballad or whatever on the song, on the whole album. And then from there it goes to the 3-part finale. The opening instrumental, the actual song, and then there's the 3rd part is like, or no, it's 4-part, never mind. Yeah. So the instrumental, opening instrumental, the song for that part, and then it changes over for a completely different mood. So it's a whole new movement. And then the very final part, which is a whole new movement as well, completely different mood, completely different setting. And then there's just the outro track, the outro song. It's not even a song, it's just an instrumental, just the guitar. I don't even think I'm going to have to mess with that for the mix. It's just going to be part of the master. That part, because it's, like I said, it's just a guitar. There's nothing really left to mix with it. The original mix of that from back in 2007 should be good all on its own. All right, so we're still waiting on the file to fully transfer to back up onto the Zulu SCSI. You know, like I said, it's an old machine, 20 some years old. It's still a slow process with these guys. I think it still transfers at a rate of 4x, just like it would if it was going onto a CD. So we're talking about a gig here. How long is it going to take a gigabyte of data to transfer over? Probably, I don't know, what, 20 minutes? Let's see. How long does it generally take? You get 80 minutes on 700 megabytes. Anybody got a calculator that can do the math on that? Like, you could figure out how many minutes for a megabyte. Is it 10? No, it's a little. It's more. It's a little more than that. I can't remember. I'm getting tired. Anyway, when this is done, I should be able to take the mix, bounce it down into a submix. Now I'm going to transfer that back over to the original file that has all the other data on it. You know, the vocals, the background stuff, the background guitar tracks, all that stuff. And I'm going to start playing with it there, kind of figuring out what's what. So I guess right now, since, I don't know if I should just shut this off and then turn on another session once it's ready, or what. I wonder, I haven't bothered to look. Has anybody actually even been watching this thing right now? Oh, Justin's here. Hey, Justin. Let's see, anything else? Nothing else. So anyway, yeah, once I get this thing done like this, once this is transferred over, we can start the next section of all this stuff. But it's slow. So, I guess while I'm waiting on this, I can tell you a little bit more about the setup. When I recorded this, it was really simple. The bass guitar was just a Westminster Jazz. And from what I understand, it's a copy, a knockoff of a Fender Precision. And it's a pretty heavy bass. It's actually several different pieces of wood that are all laminated together. You can see the actual differences in the grain. But it's always sounded really, really nice. It's been a really nice sounding bass. Thick, full, just a great tone to it. And the guitars on this album, I'm using a Fender Strat Deluxe Plus 40th anniversary model. It's got a Floyd Rose tremolo, locking tremolo, and it's using 3 different Fender licensed lace sensor pickups. And if I remember right, it's the gold, blue, and red pickups. I can't remember what order they're in. But one thing I've noticed about those pickups is they're really clean. I mean, and quiet, just so quiet. It is really nice. You run onto these high gain effects and there's barely any noise that comes through at all when you're not playing. Doesn't matter how you got the guitar set up. It's just real nice. And then the effects processors, I'm using a PV Pro Effects, and those were made in the early 90s, and they were just a rack mount processor that had MIDI control capabilities, but they were set up that you can actually, how it was advertised, replace 18 different foot pedals at once. And it comes with 128 presets, and you can go in there and not just manipulate all the settings, but you can go in there and completely rewrite the settings for yourself. So a lot of the tones that you hear in this album, within the tracks that are more like the old classic rock tracks, vaudeville tracks, whatnot, those guitar tones are the preset tracks in the PV Pro Effects. In fact, if I remember right, the distorted guitar track that I used, it is actually called Metal, even though it is nowhere near what we hear as metal guitar tracks in this day of age. It does not have anywhere near the gain or nor the aggressiveness. And then the guitar tracks and the guitar tone for the sounds like you guys have been hearing off of this mix right now, those I made myself. It's supposed to be, in my opinion, something that's more along the lines of the old, what is it, Univox Super Fuzz, but it's not quite the same sound. I have the Univox Super Fuzz, the red one. Hey, it's done. I have that. I have one of those, and I still can't quite emulate it just right with what I set up. So I stopped trying to emulate it with the program that I was creating on the Profex, and instead just tried to make a sound that I enjoyed playing. I enjoyed listening to it while I was practicing or whatnot, and just go from there. You know, just try to make it sound better or sound as good as I could, and just leave it alone. Not try to make it sound like something else. But it wasn't. It's not really distorted guitar using the distortion effects. It's an overdrive, but I threw in EQs in front of the overdrive and just blasted those things out, so it really amped up the signal going in, clipping the signal going into the overdrive. So you're overdriving an overdrive, and then you're coming out, and then you're overdriving that signal even more with more EQs that you're just blasting through there. And then it's going through other things like coil tap emulators and oh shoot, what else is in there? I can't remember everything that's in there. But anyway, that's the tone. You're not going to get it from anything else because it's specifically made within that machine using the effects that it has. And that machine, the chorus programs on it are just amazing. I mean, you get some kind of really weird effects out of that thing that I can't get off of like what I find in DAWs or anything. So it's definitely a great piece of machinery, a great piece of hardware to use for guitar processing, or you can even use it in post-processing for when you're doing your mixes and stuff. And it was an expensive unit back when it was made. 1992, that thing was $800. You know, I don't have that access to a calculator at the moment to figure out what that'd be in today's dollars, but $800 back then with a guitar that was priced at $1,700 something back then, which it's mostly back then, you know, as it is today with a Fender, you're paying for brand name. It's not necessarily that the hardware or the wood or anything like that is so much better than what you might get out of a $400 or $500 guitar these days. In fact, a few months ago, we found a Fender knockoff at the dump. It was just made in China. It just says guitar on it or something like that. But it actually is set up really nice with one problem. The bridge wasn't set up properly, so the intonation is way off. But that's not hard to fix at all, you know. But the action on it, the string height, everything is really good. The connection for where you plug into is nice and tight. It's not loose. It's not sloppy. It's not a lot of noise. It's a basic guitar setup. It doesn't have a tremolo or a whammy bar on it or whatever. But it's a nice looking guitar. And I looked it up, and you buy these things off of Alibaba for like, what was it, $198 or $200 something. But yeah, somebody bought that because they were wanting a guitar to do whatever they were going to do with, learn how to play, and they couldn't get it to stay in tune because they didn't know the intonation bullshit. But outside of that, set the intonation, this $200 guitar is going to play and work just as well as one of these $1,500 guitars. So, you know, point is just because I was using a $1,700 guitar when I recorded this guy doesn't necessarily mean that, you know, that's why, you know, that's where the sound comes from, or that's what makes it better than if I would have used something different. The first album I used an old 62 Fender Jazzmaster that's been all worn down. Anyway, this guy's stopped, which means it's done what it's needed to do, transferred everything over. So now I am going to dump the mix onto a submix. Or did I? Shit. I've been talking so long I don't remember if I just did that. Let's find out. We'll just solo this out. Pair these. EQ or pan. See what happens. Now, if you're wondering why is there so much leader? Nope, I didn't bounce it, so I need to bounce it. So I was going to say, now you might be wondering why there's so much leader. Because on the regular song file where this submix goes, there's other elements that are recorded in front of it that start off. Okay, I think that's going to work out pretty good. It's been bounced down. Now I just need to set that bounce up with the full tracking on the actual original song file. But before I do that, we're going to save this. Just in case anything weird happens. And I wanted to just make a quick note on the drums themselves with how they're coming through on this particular recording. I'm not sure if these microphones that are on the cell phone are doing the audio any justice, but from my vantage point, listening to the drums through these Yamahas, they don't sound bad at all. They sound pretty good. They got a nice full sound to them. And I just tried for shits and giggles on this recording for this album. I'm using these cheap old Pile PD mic 78s, you know, the ones that are supposed to be SM57 ripoffs. They may look like an SM57, but they don't really sound like an SM57. They're much brighter. When you look at the graph for this frequency curve on the SM57, it looks similar to what the Pile will show you for their PD mic 78s. But if you look at where those frequencies lie on their graphs, it's in completely different spots. Where the peaks are in like the upper mid-range, I think the Piles peak at lower mid-range, like around 8K they start peaking. I might be wrong, but it's going to be like they'll start peaking at 8K and be flat below there, down to 100 hertz or something like that, while the SM57 will be peaking at 16K or 14K or something like that. You know, so these guys actually are much brighter sounding than an actual SM57. Not necessarily the kind of mic you're probably going to want to use on all the way around a drum kit. They're good for snare. If you want a bright snare, you're not going to have any issue with that. Especially if you want to use them for the bottom part of the snare to catch the snare, the spring itself. Going to be great for that. They could be good for certain guitar amps, you know, for certain sounds. You want to capture a brighter sound there. They might be really good on acoustic guitars if you don't want to use condenser microphones for whatever reason. I wouldn't recommend them for the kick, at least not by themselves. The kick, I'm using a PV kick mic, and it actually works really great. Captures the low end really well in combination with the attack of the mallet without having to do a whole bunch of different work. So it works great for that. And I'm not really sure you'd want to use them for your low toms because you want to have more low frequency accentuation from those guys. But they can be usable. They definitely can be usable and have their place. Of course, for the overheads, I'm still just using the MXL 993s. I think I got sitting over there. I think that's the pencil mics. And then on some of the other recordings, I've also taken the MX 990s, large diaphragm condensers, placed them out in the room, acting as room mics. But yeah, as it is, the drums themselves right now, it's not a bad sound at all. Not for some microphones that, when I bought them, they were only, I think it was $11 some change a piece off of Amazon. Maybe they were 16 something a piece on Amazon. Cheap, real cheap. Usable, but cheap. Okay, so let's go ahead, get these files, this particular mix down transferred over to the original file. Because I want to start hearing how all this stuff actually blends in with the rest of the music. And anybody that's been following along, you probably wanted to have that, get to that point now too. I think it's still just, oh, it's Harry. Hey Harry, how you doing? All right, what do we got here? All right, so first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to import those tracks. Okay, the mixed down tracks have been imported. Hopefully I selected the right ones. I'm pretty sure I did. All right, let's see what this is going to sound like. Turn the volume down for a minute. Okay, need to turn up the output on the mix channels. First, let's just hear it. I'm not sure if you guys were able to notice that. I have just a little bit of compression on there that I want to showcase. Here, let me back it up. Okay, so that's starting off at only 1.7 to 1 compression, where the threshold is set down to negative 13 dB. The attack is 14 milliseconds, the release is 17 milliseconds. Let me just show you the subtle difference when we take that compression off of there. No compression. That was adding the compression back on there. Now, hopefully you were able to hear it, but if you didn't, what it did is it gave the snare a little more thwack. You know, there was a little bit more of the transient coming through there. And then it compressed everything down just a little bit, just for a little bit, to give it that, punch from the snare, from the kick coming through, just a little bit. It didn't sound like it was just, I guess, I don't know, watered down or whatever. Everything just sounds kind of blah. You get that big pop to it. That's with no compression. was with compression. So I don't know, you might have been able to hear that, maybe not. Anyway, let me get this thing set up so that these sub-mix tracks sound like they blend in with the rest of it, because I don't want to mess with the volume on the rest of it. That should already be set. It's just the sub-mix track needs to get blended. What's going on here? I need to get rid of that. I got compression on the master channel at the moment. We don't want that at the moment. So, turn that off. And I'm going to back this back up to the beginning. So I've turned the attenuation on the master channel down 7 dB just to give me some headroom. And now I'm going to turn off the auto mix. And I'm going to adjust the settings on the sub mix that I was just working on, and see if I can get things to blend better with that. I think I like that. Let's go back, take a listen again. Let's see if I can just save that setting. Yeah, submix compression, we'll just store that just like that. Okay, so let's turn the auto mix back on, back it up. So everything on the auto mix, it should go back to its initial settings. And then we go back and we set up that submix with its actual new compression setting. Store the scene, back it up, play it. Oh, I forgot. I want to change this setting here. 7, and we're going to just turn this off altogether. Okay, so I'm going to have to go through and readjust volume settings a little bit here and there with the vocals and some of the guitar harmony parts and stuff as well, because of how much I've turned up the submix compared to where it was before. But I think right now it's a good time. I need a break. and I'm going to shut off the live feed. And when I come back, get everything set up, I'll start up another live feed. If anybody wants to pop back on, if they get a notification and watch, that's fine. Like I said, this is all impromptu. I wasn't really planning on doing this today for a live feed, so it's just all being done over the cell phone and Wi-Fi. I'm not hooked up for any high quality audio or have a bunch of different cameras involved or whatnot. But when I come back, if you guys are here, I'll see you then. Otherwise, have a good day, whoever's been watching, whoever's listened to it. Yeah, it's just kind of nice to get a change of pace here, get back to doing this. Anyways, I'll be back in a little bit.